In the winter of 1973, 5 young Americans were on the verge of collapse. They had formed a band, recorded an album, done everything right. But success never came. No hit songs, no sales, no money. Their record label was giving up. Then the unthinkable happened. A melancholic ballad written by a teenager on a piano and dismissed as too soft became their salvation. That melody lifted them to rock stardom and showed how one song changed everything. This is how Aerosmith rose from obscurity to become legends. In the late 1960s, in the quiet resort town of Sunapee, New Hampshire, 2 young musicians made a connection that would spark the beginning of a legend. Steven Tyler and Joe Perry weren't dreaming of sold-out arenas when they first met. They wanted to create music that captured the raw energy of the Rolling Stones and Led Zeppelin, but with an unmistakably American edge. Their shared vision was to forge something new, blues-based riffing married with grittier, more aggressive swagger. By 1970, they had a plan: move to Boston, form a real band, and make their mark on the world. The move to Boston was more than a change of address, it was a leap of faith. 5 young men crammed into a small apartment at 1325 Commonwealth Avenue. Steven Tyler on vocals, Joe Perry on guitar, Tom Hamilton on bass, Joey Kramer on drums, and Brad Whitford, who left his studies at Berklee College of Music because he believed he'd learn more performing live than studying theory. Their first paid gig came on November 6, 1970, at Nipmuc Regional High School. They were still mostly playing covers, but something was different. They had an attitude, a swagger that set them apart. They were rebels who refused to play the demanding 5-set performances that local clubs demanded. They did things their way, and that independence would define everything that followed. But success was still a distant dream. The path ahead held no promises of fame, only the certainty that from that moment on, there was no way back. Before we continue, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. By 1972, Aerosmith had landed their first recording contract. Walking into the studio to record their self-titled debut album should have been their moment of triumph. Instead, it became their first real test of survival. The band was terrified. Steven Tyler later recalled how they froze up the moment the red recording light came on. When he heard the playback, his heart sank. They sounded flat, lifeless, nothing like the electrifying live act that had been building a following. The album, released on January 5, 1973, was met with crushing indifference. Columbia chose to release it simultaneously with Bruce Springsteen's debut, giving the boss the promotional push Aerosmith desperately needed. The ultimate insult came when Rolling Stone magazine didn't even review their album. But Aerosmith had a secret weapon: their relentless touring schedule. While their album collected dust, they were out on the road performing explosive shows that left audiences breathless. They were building the Blue Army, a grassroots following of fans who believed in them when no one else did. This constant touring wasn't just about building fans, it was transforming them as musicians. By their second album, Get Your Wings, guitarist Joe Perry noted they had become better players. The album spent 86 weeks on the charts, proving their live energy was finally translating into commercial viability. Their second album showed promise, but the real breakthrough was still waiting in the wings, hidden in a song that predated the band's formation. A song born from the dreams of a teenager who refused to give up on his impossible ambitions. The single that would define Aerosmith's career had origins reaching back to Steven Tyler's adolescence. He was just 17, working at a lodge in Sunapee, when the melody first came to him. The inspiration went deeper, to childhood memories of lying under his father's Steinway piano, listening to classical music that influenced the song's sophisticated chord progressions. Dream On was Steven Tyler's manifesto. It captured the hunger of being young and ambitious, the desperation of chasing impossible dreams, and the belief that persistence could make them come true. It was about the hunger to be somebody, and dreaming until your dreams come true. But bringing the song to life nearly destroyed them. Tyler had a specific vision for the piano sound, but the band had no money. That's when desperation led to the suitcase incident. a moment that perfectly captured the dangerous edge of their early years. Tyler found a suitcase full of cash, likely drug money, outside their Boston apartment. Without telling his bandmates, he used the money to buy a $2,000 keyboard. When the owners came looking, Tyler found himself staring down a gun barrel. A mobster threatened, "Look, you hippie, lying is as good as dying." The situation was only diffused when their building manager, a Vietnam veteran, burst in wielding a sword, causing the gangsters to retreat. The song's existence was steeped in danger and desperation, a perfect metaphor for their early career. They were willing to risk everything for their art, even when measured in life and death. Despite this harrowing origin, Dream On was met with crushing disappointment when first released on June 27, 1973. The song Tyler had risked his life to create peaked at a humiliating number 59 on the national charts. The real crisis came in 1975. Their latest single, You See Me Crying, had failed to chart, and the band faced being dropped by Columbia. That's when manager David Krebs convinced the label to re-release Dream On. This time, magic happened. The song that had been ignored in 1973 soared to number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1976. Dream On had become the saving grace that secured their future in the music industry. But the real story was just beginning. The success of Dream On opened the floodgates for everything that followed. Following Dream On's breakthrough, Aerosmith experienced a meteoric rise. Their third album, Toys in the Attic, sold 9 million copies and produced enduring anthems like Sweet Emotion and Walk This Way. Rocks, their 1976 album, took them even higher, earning them the title America's Greatest Rock and Roll Band. The success wasn't just commercial, it was cultural. They became the blueprint for American hard rock. Guns N' Roses' Axl Rose called them the hardest, ballsiest rock band that ever came out of America. Slash picked up the guitar after hearing Rocks. Metallica's James Hetfield wore out their albums as a teenager. These future legends were learning from the masters. But success came at a devastating price. As their fame grew, so did their appetite for destruction. The fall, when it came, was as dramatic as their rise had been spectacular. By the late 70s, the dream had become a nightmare. The band that had once been willing to risk everything for their music was now being destroyed by their own success. Drug addiction had turned bandmates into enemies, and the creative partnership that had built their empire was crumbling. The warning signs had been there for years. Tyler and Perry's substance abuse was legendary, earning them the nickname the Toxic Twins. They would disappear for days, miss rehearsals, and show up to recording sessions completely wasted. Band meetings became screaming matches. The music that had once flowed naturally now required Herculean efforts to create. Albums like Draw the Line and Night in the Ruts showed a band struggling to maintain their edge while battling their demons. Critics began writing them off, saying Aerosmith had lost their way. The chemistry that made songs like Dream On possible seemed gone forever. The breaking point came in a shocking incident in January 1980. During a performance in Portland, Maine, Steven Tyler was so intoxicated that he couldn't continue. Instead of admitting the truth, he faked a collapse on stage, telling the crowd he had passed out. It was a public humiliation that exposed the depth of their problems to the world. Things got worse. Tyler suffered a horrific motorcycle crash in New Hampshire, forcing the band into inactivity for nearly a year. The personal turmoil eventually shattered the classic lineup. In the summer of 1979, Joe Perry departed to pursue other projects. Less than 2 years later, guitarist Brad Whitford also left. The financial consequences were catastrophic. Drummer Joey Kramer recalled, "It was rough. There was no money. I spent everything I had until, finally, nothing." Brad Whitford was forced to sell his guitars and his house. Steven Tyler confessed to having blew $20 million on drugs. Joe Perry was facing death threats from drug dealers. By the mid-1980s, the original members of Aerosmith were professional and personal wreckage. Their 1984 reunion tour, dubbed Back in the Saddle, was less a glorious return than a desperate attempt to survive financially. Their comeback album, Done with Mirrors, was a commercial failure that proved a simple reunion wasn't enough to restore their former glory. Everything seemed lost. The dream that had started with Dream On appeared to be over. But sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected direction. In 1986, when all seemed lost, a single phone call changed everything. The influential hip-hop group, Run DMC, wanted to collaborate with Aerosmith on a new version of Walk This Way. It was an audacious idea, a fusion of rock and rap that many thought could never work. The collaboration wasn't just audacious, it was risky. Hip-hop and rock existed in completely separate worlds in 1986. Many traditionalists from both genres thought mixing them was sacrilege. MTV was still predominantly white-oriented, and rap music was largely confined to urban radio stations and underground scenes. But the chemistry between the groups was undeniable. Run DMC brought street credibility and a fresh energy that Aerosmith desperately needed. Meanwhile, Aerosmith's Rock Foundation gave the hip-hop pioneers access to a massive mainstream audience they had never reached before. The recording process was electric. When Steven Tyler heard Run DMC's reimagined version of Walk This Way, he was blown away by how they had transformed his song while keeping its essential DNA. The collaboration felt like a cultural earthquake waiting to happen. The concept was brilliant in its simplicity. The music video would literally and metaphorically tear down the wall between two musical worlds. Two rooms, one with Aerosmith and the other with Run DMC, separated by a single wall. As the song progressed, the hip-hop beat would overpower the rock sound, prompting a frustrated Steven Tyler to smash through the wall, uniting the two genres in a moment of pure musical magic. The behind-the-scenes atmosphere was tense. The budget was a mere $67,000, and the cultural divide between the two groups was real. But when they started playing together, something extraordinary happened. The energy was electric, and everyone in the room knew they were witnessing something special. On the day of the video shoot, spontaneous chaos erupted as local fans, both black and white, broke through a glass door to join the filming. The fusion of the two musical worlds had created something bigger than anyone had imagined. The video was immediately picked up by MTV, and the song became a global phenomenon, peaking at number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100. More importantly, it was the first hip-hop single to reach the top 5 on the Billboard charts. This strategic masterstroke didn't just revive Aerosmith's career. It launched them into an era of even greater success than their 1970s peak. They were rejuvenated by the surge in popularity and released Permanent Vacation in 1987. The first album they had ever recorded completely sober. This was followed by multi-platinum efforts like Pump and Get a Grip that proved their comeback was no fluke. Aerosmith's story is ultimately about the power of persistence and the magic of unexpected second chances. They began as misfits with a dream, writing songs in cramped apartments and risking everything for their art. Their most famous song, Dream On, was born from youthful ambition and a moment of reckless desperation, a beautiful and terrifying duality that mirrored their entire career. The song's initial failure made its eventual success a story of redemption that would be repeated throughout their journey. Their spectacular fall from grace was a brutal lesson in the cost of success, but their comeback proved that even after hitting rock bottom, it's possible to build something even stronger on the wreckage of the past. Today, as their touring days wind down due to Steven Tyler's vocal issues, their influence on rock music is undeniable. They didn't just create great songs, they created a template for American hard rock that influenced everyone from Guns N' Roses to Metallica. Dream On became the prototype for the power ballad, showing that rock bands could be vulnerable and powerful at the same time. Their collaboration with Run DMC didn't just save their career, it helped create the cultural fusion that would define popular music for decades to come. They proved that great art comes from taking risks, from being willing to tear down walls, both literal and metaphorical. In the end, Aerosmith's legacy is the story of the American dream itself. The idea that with enough persistence, creativity, and willingness to take risks, anything is possible. Even when your dreams seem dead. Even when the world has forgotten your name. Sometimes all it takes is one song to change everything. The dream never died, it just learned how to fly. Now, we want to hear from you. What's your favorite Aerosmith song? Do you think they would have been just as legendary without Dream On? If you enjoyed this video, drop a like, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories behind the mic.